Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. We've, fully begun. Shall we say this is day one, or is it day two of the second leg of the lockdown that we spoke about yesterday, having been indeed advised so by the president. I'm alongside Cyril Abaku, senior researcher, TVC News. Good morning, Cyril. But it's not to me, really. You need to say good morning to them. I already did my good morning to them.
Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers. It's a pleasure coming to you,
I have no other speech. No other speech. But, if I'm laughing in these gloomy times, maybe it's something of a result of the series of actions rolled out by Lagos State government yesterday. We'll come to that. That's something we'll be talking about as we also look at the compliance level to the lockdown in Abuja, in Ogun, in Abuja, in Lagos, and indeed, for that matter, in Ogun. We'll be getting, our correspondence from there. But I started off by talking about, the situation in Lagos. There were all sorts of scary boogies in the air, all sorts of, not almost, but seditious statements that were flying up and down. And it would seem to me that the Lagos State government moved in, having heard, and then, there's a lot to be said for the directness of social media. So there was no way the authorities could not say they had not heard. And people were saying that we've been crying for help, we've been panicking, we've been sending SOSs, they're not responding, we've been left to be on our own. Apparently they were listening and were strategizing.
Another set of palliatives announced by the governor yesterday.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
The packages. As we wait for the producers, the palliatives were, look, Lagos is not a poor state. I think we need to put that up front. Of course, they will not readily agree with this because, no rich man, they say the money don't do. Say if I can get some more. But Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu yesterday announced more measures to cushion the effects of the extended, lockdown. And, you just highlight them. He's talking about 250,000 vulnerable people. They've, commenced the distribution of relief materials to them. And that's in addition to 100,000 youths that are going to be provided with 1 meal a day. When we're hearing about hunger, this hunger past coronavirus and all of that, whatever, that might just be no more than a stab. But, look, it has happened. 100,000 youths through their own, we'll talk about how they're going to achieve this, through their own kitchens, will indeed be, given a meal a day. Then there's also the matter of what the governor called conditional cash transfers to 250,000 people again. And then maybe also heartwarmingly, this whole matter of repayment on state facilitated loans to SMEs and all those kind of people. There's going to be a moratorium on them, 3 months moratorium. All of these as part of the packages. We'll come and deal with that. As far as the internet goes, a lot of commendations going to the Lagos State governor on that, and of course people now coming in on the action, say my area or whatever. But we'll talk about the frontal address of the security situation that terrorized, shall we say, traumatized people in Lagos. It would seem that the Lagos State government, with the assistance of the Inspector General of Police, have dealt decisively with that situation. Okay. Now we have, as I said, we're going to be looking at the level of lockdowns and how well we're doing. Our Kemi Balogun in Abuja is standing by. Good morning, Kemi. Good morning, Kemi. Okay, can you hear us, Kemi? Good morning. This is Yori Folari and Cyril Abaku in Lagos. Hope you are well. Could you tell us how well people are, handling the lockdown in Abuja in terms of compliance? Okay, it's clear. I think, yeah. Okay, Kemi is having issues. So Kemi is, as you can see, she's ready for us. there are one or two little gremlins in the cables and that kind of a thing. So, you know, but we have Kemi standing by. And we also have a man in Abeokuta, Olowe. He also, Kazim Olowe, he'll be telling us about what's going on there. And later on in the package, we'll be speaking with, you know, senior crimes correspondent. Yeah, Ivy Kanu, you know, maybe her, you know, commentary and overview and all of this. In fact, Ivy Kanu, let's start with her report.
Most motorists woke up to these on the roads in most parts of Lagos, from Ojodu, Agege, Dopemu, Akuonjo, Ikpaja, Abeson, and others. Bonfire were visible. Residents say the bonfire is meant to ward off any intending attack by criminal elements. As reported on social media, in most areas we visited, mom was the word, as nobody could attest to being attacked by armed robbers.
People will prevent what is coming. At least people that are those hoodlums, they will see that some people are alert in their own area. It's just preventive measure.
The point of the day was also a security purpose, and the community play a role so they can defend when the opponent, the armed robber, coming down to rob.
We have been warned not to kill the criminals. Imagine coming to meet someone, rob and sleep with his wife. But if the government is ready, they should take care of us, even if it is for 1 month.
One man's joy is another man's worry. For this vulcanizer who preferred to be anonymous, he is now saddled with the responsibility of sweeping the short tires so he could carry on with his business. The Inspector General of Police says he has deployed police mobile force units, Federal Special Anti-Robbery Squad, Intelligence Response Team, and the Special Tactical Squad to Lagos and Ogun State to strengthen security and also bolster public confidence.
We also ensure that policemen are deployed, the policemen that were deployed adhere strictly to the force code of conduct and respect for the rights of Nigerian citizens.
Nigerians are hoping that with this deployment, sanity will be restored in both states. One of the aims of the joint patrol team, which started their movement last night, is, amongst others, to ensure that Lagosians stopped having bonfires on their street. But with our movement today, we've noticed that on every street, there appears to be a bonfire, which signifies that residents still need more assurance by security agents. Ivy Kano, TVC News, Lagos.
Okay, then, thanks very much, Ivy Kano. That report went out earlier. Maybe we'll be able to talk with you later on in the program on the phone. So maybe there will be some updates to the situation as you reported it, because that report actually went out before now. So, as I was saying, well, you know what, let's go back to Abuja and let's try Kemi and allow for delays, but we need to see if Kemi can hear us now. Good morning, Kemi. Okay, good morning. This is Yori Folani in Lagos alongside Cyril Abaku, and we hope you're well in Abuja. Tell us, Kemi, what do you think, how well do you think people are complying with the lockdown in Abuja? How are they handling it?
Not very well, I must say, because we still find out that those of us on essential duties still end up getting, stuck in traffic, actually, at checkpoints, because a lot of people who are not supposed to be out on the road are actually out on the road. So this is adding to the weight on the burden of security personnel who have to keep checking those who are on essential duties, those who are not, and sending some people back if whatever it is they have to do is not that important. So the thing is an individual effort, and everybody must take part in ensuring that everyone around them and including them stay safe, which means everyone should stay at home. If you don't have to be out on the road, you shouldn't be, because the whole issue about social distances or physical distance, as the NCDCDG said the other day, is the fact that you stay away from people who you don't even know or you don't have to associate with. So being out there means that you're coming in contact with people who you don't even know, either they have the virus or they do not. And a lot of people actually are asymptomatic, as you know, as stated, which means they may not have symptoms, but they are carrying this virus around and spreading it. So we need to take care of ourselves by staying at home, and also the security personnel need to ensure that they enforce this, because a lot of people have, you know, a lot of quarters, you know, people have stated that once you give them bribe or once you give them a little token, they will let you go ahead. So I mean, there's really no need for everyone to keep leaving their homes if they don't have to.
Yeah,
so
but Kemi, on that point, on that point, as you are emphasizing the seriousness of this, and the police themselves know the seriousness, could you verify that statement that, you know, or is it just an ahiso? What is it? Is it just a rumor that if you were to, you know, oblige our men in uniform with a nominal token, they will let you buy? Do you have any evidence for that?
Well, yesterday at the Presidential Task Force briefing, the questions were thrown to the IGP, who actually, you know, commented on it. And, you know, because the thing is, even when you go online, you see a lot of things. There was a policeman who was actually caught the other day collecting a bribe of 40,000 naira just, you know, from someone. So he had to return the money back, and he was, you know, adequately dealt with. So there, for me, I do not have an evidence, but you know, when people say these things, I have a colleague who even this morning stated the fact that she was actually in traffic at a checkpoint, and a police officer was actually getting a 1,000 naira note from someone in a vehicle. You know, but of course there's no evidence to show, but you know, coming from people who, you know, would not, you know, just sit down and say these things. But the thing is, if you give the security personnel adequate palliatives and you're giving them hazard allowances to be on the road, because they are working night and day to ensure the safety of Nigerians, they're also working to ensure that those who are out are also kept safe. So you need, the IGP and the government need to ensure that those on the road are also taken care of, because if they are not, these things will keep happening, and those who are not supposed to be out will be out.
Talking about palliatives, Kemi, you know, well, you no doubt have heard the waves that Lagos State was making yesterday. What has been the attitude to palliatives as we are now referring to? It's a matter of easing the hardships of people in Abuja, both from the point of view of the authorities and the reception from, you know, the people that these things were designed to help in the first instance.
Well, coming from, you know, a lot of, you know, opinions here and there, the palliatives are actually not reaching those who they're supposed to reach. And to bridge that gap is to ensure that the poorest of the poor, those, especially those who have to, you know, work for their daily, you know, survival, for their daily feeding, that they get these palliatives to them. So which means you're going to those communities or to the grassroots to ensure that everybody, house to house, has and comes in contact with either the cash transfer or the grains that have been given out, or you know, other, you know, palliative measures that you know, the government is putting in place to ensure that people are comfortable and eating and feeding at this time. Because the thing is, you wouldn't say, okay, the last cash transfer that was done in Kuje was in Kuje, and you know, people came out. It was stated that about 2 or so million people got these palliatives or so, and a lot more would get this on this second time. But we have to ensure that the people who are getting these are people who actually need to get these palliatives from the government.
Well, I want to thank you, Kemi. No doubt we'll be updating the situation as time goes on. Thank you very much in Abuja there. Please stay safe. Okay, that's Kemi. We also will be checking with our correspondent in Ogun State. Well, he will be, coming in from Abeokuta via a phone, talking about Kazim Olowe. And as I said, we'll also be talking with, be speaking to Ivy Kano later on. And indeed, later on, we also will be looking into the whole matter of the fuel, the subsidy removal, and, how that's working out. The presidency announced a reduction in the pump price of fuel. Remember, that, well, the first one that we knew about was the 145 down to 125. Well, we heard about that. We saw the meters actually reflect that. But the subsequent one from 125 down to 123.5, I don't know if you're not, well, let me tell you my experience. The Total station that is closest to me, they have not adjusted their meter. And I say, why haven't you adjusted your meter? And they say, well, work, it's skeletal work, the engineers. I say, come on. If this thing had gone to, from 125, if it had gone to 140, you people will do all that is necessary to take that 140. People shrug helplessly. They shrug helplessly, say, well, okay, what will I do? So we'll be speaking later on with Mr. Tunji Oyebanji via Skype. And he's chairman, Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria. And he, hopefully will be shedding some light on what exactly is going on. Why this particular segment has been slow. It was okay from 145 to 125, right? Yeah. But what happened to the 125 to 123 and a half? We don't know about that one. Well, Kemi was just telling us there that some more work needs to be done in terms of the compliance and the whole palliatives issue. And but I don't know when we'll get into that. We'll probably see if we can get hold of the Lagos State government people, for tomorrow, and maybe do a fuller program on it, because far-reaching, measures have been announced, as I sort of summarized in there. What do you think yourself, Cyril, about the, as we wait for our man to tell us about the Ogun experience, what do you think of the Lagos State actions against the backdrop of all sorts of, it seemed like there was a looming, impending anarchy, free rubbish statements, seditious statements up and down the land.
Inflammatory rhetoric.
Thank you. I love that. Inflammatory rhetoric.
Extremely inflammatory.
Yes.
And you know that it takes a little thing for everything to tip over.
That's all.
What we suggested on Monday on this program was that people are hungry, you give them food. The reality is that we're in a lockdown. Now, this lockdown has broken down in some places. The reality again is that, and again, it is difficult to put it in one place. I've had people who argue and say government should do more to enforce the lockdown. I've had those who argue and say people should do more to comply with the lockdown. But I think that in between there must be a common ground, which is to say that we must target those whom we need to reach to be able to nip the security challenge in the bud. How can we do that? The Lagos State government, if you read the speech I think the governor made yesterday, he alluded to the fact that there will need to be a verification with, courtesy of the Lagos State Residents Register and so on. But the fact is that we may not have time for that sort of public policy ritual whereby we want to be sure that all those who want to reach are on the register and to be sure that all those who have the capacity to cause problem are registered. It may not always be. What we need to do for now is to cast the net as far as we can cast it and make sure that as many as fall within a bracket of being able to cause a problem are reached and are assuaged sufficiently. Okay. Hopefully it will blow over. But before it blows over, what can we do? The governor has also said, talk about cash transfers and so on, people who are in business, moratorium on loan repayments and so on. it only goes to show that we are actually knowledgeable about who we are and about the critical areas. The governor also said something to the effect that all cars that have been impounded for traffic offenses between March 1st and now, I must tell you that when I read that part of the speech, I think it struck a chord with me. Because you cannot on the one hand tell people, say, don't go out, don't fend for yourselves, and then on the other hand, you're also taking the little left from them. So it's a brilliant way to use one stone to kill to kill more than one bird
as possible. Let me interrupt you because Ivy is on the phone, and let's not burn credit. Good morning, Ivy. Ivy Kano, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Okay, there we go. Yori here and Cyril Abaku. Well, the police, have come into the situation in Lagos and Ogun, parts of Ogun, as were announced. They've come up with all sorts of units to assist the governments in Lagos and Ogun. Talking about so many, nice-sounding forces. We have what they refer to as the police mobile force units, federal special anti-robbery squads, intelligence response team, special tactical squads. All of these are now coming into the fray in the light of the almost, breakdown of law and order. Have you noticed that have they swung into action?
I think they have, because last night when I left the office, that's about maybe like 10 to 10 p.m. In the night, I noticed that if you're driving through 7-Up down to Beja area, as if you're going towards Redeem Camp, I noticed that I saw special force kind of police officers that dressed differently, and I think they have arrived Lagos. That was my conclusion last night.
Okay. Again, no doubt we'll be getting reports, as your fellow correspondents begin, filing situations to us, because otherwise I was going to ask what your contacts are telling you in terms of whether it has become better in those hotspots. I think that's what police calls those troublesome areas. People burning tires, all sorts of vigilantes coming out into the fray, cutlasses, axes,
flying freely.
So much so that people didn't know whether they were being saved or being tormented. If all of that has died down.
Yeah. I think the reported or alleged robbery that happened a few days ago in the border areas actually affected the psyche of most Lagosians, because residents, yesterday we went out to check, the situation report, and we noticed that on almost every street you have bonfire, and you notice that like last night, the streets around where I live, all the men were out, as early as 8, 9 p.m. And I stopped at few places to ask why they were out, and they told me that we don't have to wait for these people to get to us. Now, I'm believing that it's a perception thing. The fear has been told to Lagosians. Everybody is feeling extremely insecure. Not that they have witnessed any robbery, not that they know of any, because I went to over 7 places yesterday to feel the pulse of the people and also ask questions. All the places we went to, no individual came out to say, I have been robbed or my sister has been robbed. Everything we were told was that I heard that there was robbery there. I heard that there was. So there's no, will I say,
well,
we weren't able to get a victim.
Okay,
really.
yeah, but be that as it may, Ivy, as you also are aware, the directness of social media also allows us to get, reports from citizen reporters, that kind of a thing. So some of those, I don't know how well they will stand up to professional scrutiny, are actually alleging that they have been violated, you know, that kind of a thing. So, but I know you can't just depend on those kind of stories because there is a professional aspect to these things.
Exactly, because for us TV, we needed somebody to, you know, we needed a face to a statement. We needed to see a victim. We needed to see an area where robbery actually took place.
Indeed. Indeed.
So that we didn't see yesterday.
Okay.
I'm not saying that, you know, there's no tendency that we won't see today or tomorrow that a victim won't come out to say, you know, I was raped, I was robbed, or all that. But as at yesterday when we went out, and I won't claim that we went to all areas in Lagos, but those areas we were told that this, like certain places in Abeson, certain places in Akowonjo. When we got to Abeson, they said go to Akowonjo. We went to Akowonjo. When we went there, they said go to Egbeda, go to Dokpemu.
Yeah.
So our crew, we were just going round, and we didn't get, you know, any particular street where this robbery.
Okay.
My conclusion was yesterday was maybe it's perception, it's the fear that the social media has told to people. For me, at some point yesterday, I wanted to leave the office earlier, you know, because somehow it's also getting to some of us.
Yeah.
And you see that even when I left at 10, there was nothing, you know. A few gates where ordinarily you would have just driven past, they were already locked as at that time. These are street gates that lock for 12, that lock their gates for 12. They were locked at 10.
All right. Then.
So this is the site. It's already gone round. I think the security agents will have to do so much for people to again feel secure.
All right then. Thank you very much, Ivy Kanu, for the situation report. Indeed, keep safe as you go about your, you know, assignments. So there you are, Cyril. It still remains for us to make contact with Kazim Alowe in Abuja to hear, you know, his situation. And as I said, coming up, we'll be speaking with Mr. Tunji Oyebanji.
If I may throw a right to what Ivy just said.
Sure.
Yes, the police has its work cut out for it.
It does.
Now, as at yesterday, no, this morning, as early as, it was about 49 minutes past 12 midnight, which is really like, you know.
This morning?
Yes, this morning. People in Bega were complaining and saying, look, the madness has come to this place. They couldn't sleep. They were wide awake. They had different whistle sounds, noise, and everything.
Yeah.
Whether it was local vigilance groups keeping people at bay, or it was these same faceless people who normally who have had their reign of terror in other places, who have now shifted to Bega, we don't know. But the fact is that residents, when people don't know the difference between the savior's call and the devil's whistle, there's a problem. And so the police, if they don't have all the numbers and resources to police everywhere, what they can do is that by now, we should have been co-opting the assistance of community leaders to keep communities safe.
Okay.
Perhaps to be the first line of defense.
Okay.
But where a residents don't know the difference between their civils and their tormentors, it compounds and conflates issues.
You know what, Cyril? I hear you. I think there's also an information aspect, you know, to all of this, because as of last night, the Lagos State Governor's Twitter handle, he was saying that. And I quote directly here, it's a paragraph. We have the responsibility of ensuring the security of the lives and properties of all residents in Lagos, and we will not abandon this responsibility at any time. He says, he continues, we will definitely see an increase in mobile police deployment in all trouble spots across the metropolis. And he went on to, urge all residents to cooperate with them, and while thanking the residents for their resilience during the extraordinary time. So far-reaching moves, the government, says it has put, it has sort of initiated with the assistance, the cooperation assistance and the aid of the Nigeria police. But when we need to get all this information out so people can know that it's not exactly where it was last week. But in the meantime, sorry, you're going to have your chance. Kazim Alowe has come online. Well, he's on the phone. It's a sort of a line. Good morning, Kazim.
Good morning, Yuri.
Okay, Yori Falani here and Cyril Baku in the studio. What do you think of the lockdown in Ogun State? How well are people complying?
Sincerely, we have to give it to residents of Ogun State because since the commencement of the lockdown, they've been very, very cooperative with the government. In fact, the Commissioner of Police actually came out to say the people of Ogun State complied beyond what he actually expected in the first week of the exercise. Looking at the state capital, which is Abuja, people complied, the roads are deserted, places were actually empty. And it shows that it means that the messages pushed out by government, other civil society organizations, and what have you, about the reason why people have to stay indoors. It means that residents actually listen to the message and they welcome the messages dished out to them. They understand the reason why they should stay indoors, except for places that like the border towns. I mean, places that are very close to Lagos. Talking about Akute axis, where these places are very, very close to Lagos, and you see some people moving, you understand, from one place to another. But if you will go to Ijebu axis of Ogun State, which is in Ogun East, you go to Ogun West, Ilaro, you come to Abeokuta, which is the state capital, you see this high level of compliance. When it was actually put into rating percentage, the Commissioner of Police noted that he will rate the level of compliance to be well above 80%. And I think that has been the situation. But when we are talking about border towns, especially between the border of Ogun State and Lagos State, there are, people are actually flouting this order. But I think between 3 days now, between 3 days to this time, there was heavy presence of security operatives in those areas to actually enforce this restriction order. Aside from that, to ensure that there is safety in this area, because these are the areas where we had complaints of stealing, robbery, and what have you.
Yeah.
So that has been the situation.
What about, Kazim, thank you very much. Well, let's swing to the question of palliatives briefly, please. What can you tell us about that? What government is trying to do?
Well, Ogun State government came up with the idea of palliatives to the aged, the elderly ones, the needy, the vulnerable, which are the physically challenged people, and the government has been able to do, I think, more than 60,000. The first phase initially was 100,000. 60 will go to the elderly ones, and then the remaining will be shared among the other class of people, which are the vulnerable. And he said,
what was going to them?
A pack that contains 5 kilograms of rice, 5 kilograms of beans, 5 kilograms of gari, and 4 sachets of vegetable oil, cubes of seasoning, and I think that's what that pack contains.
Okay.
And a pack will go to a home. You understand? So a family, when they identify, they actually engage people from the CDC and the CDAs, and then they also engage people from the leagues of imams, and then the CAN, and then other groups like that, interest group, they form the committee, and they will identify vulnerable people in the community. So it might be 5, it might be 4, it might be 3, it might be 2 in each community, each CDAs. So they will go and give it to them, not to every home.
Okay.
Not to every home, yes. They will go and they will give it to them. I think they have actually completed the first phase, but the second phase is about to start this week. I think between today or tomorrow, they should commence the sharing of the second phase.
Okay, Kazim. Kazim. Thank you very much, Kazim. We're going to keep an eye on it, and no doubt you will be helpful in that regard as well. Thank you very much, Kazim Alowe. That's our man in Ogun State, our TVC News correspondent in Ogun State, on the phone there. As I said, let's switch pace a bit. So there you go. Again, one has to be careful to have a man on the ground. Looking at what Kazim Alowe was reporting there, well, that's his perspective, and he's also putting perspective on the pictures that we saw. You see, sometimes if you put 2 or 3 pictures with the directness of social media and the way they cycle round and round and round, Ivy Kanu, in a different context, was also making the point. Kazim has made the point that by and large, he said that the authorities there are ready to give something like an 80% compliance level. Yes, there were incidents, but you know how bad news really, really travels. Bad news really travels. Your comments, if you want, on the point that reporters are putting perspective to the gory pictures. And don't forget that, generally speaking, what do they call it now? The established media, there's so many levels of sieves that they have to go through before they put stuff out there so as not to cause the wrong impression.
The principle is
but
one of consequence.
It's so direct here. Anybody, Mama Sikira and Baba Ngozi, they can grab hold of their phone and they become a publisher.
The principle is one of consequences, because if TVC or any other frontline media in Nigeria, for instance, carries fake news, there could be consequences. But for blogs and Twitter handle owners, and you don't even know when a particular handle is a front or when it's a real handle, Facebook.
So you have to be careful about mischief makers.
You have to be very careful. There was a time somebody did a story and said this was Boko Haram and was Nigerian soldiers and so on. And rival media outlets, print media actually, sacked everybody and said, how come they had this story and you didn't have it? Then later it came to be shown that was fake news. So these things happen all the time. But the fact, so let's advise people even, stick with TVC News. If you want to know the truth, stick with us. You get to know the truth. The fact is that, no, but it's true. The fact is that, given our reach and our spread, we're able to cover the ground fairly. The reality is this. In Ogun State, you saw the picture. The police commissioner said he didn't believe that the level of compliance would be as much as what they had, and that if he was to score it, he will score it from 80% and above. It only goes to show you the fact, the plain fact that the people took ownership of the process. Uncle Yori, whether it is vigilantes who are overreacting or area boys who are doing what they're doing, you can't be fighting COVID-19.
Yeah.
You can't be in a lockdown.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are people who... It's not unique to us. It also needs to be said for perspective. It's happening even in faraway God's own America.
No, but sir,
it's happening in America.
The reality
there are news reports, mainstream newspaper reports, and they are among the most careful of people, that are saying that hoodlums are taking undue advantage. And meanwhile, police are also down with coronavirus, so they have policemen in yonder, I forget the county or the state.
In New York alone, they have more than 2,000 as of 2 weeks ago.
So, where they've lost 20% of the force to this particular illness. And so, the bad guys are taking advantage. So, we're not saying that these things don't happen, but we just want to think about perspective and balance. I believe we have Mr. Tunji Oyebanji on the phone now, having tried Skype and not getting much luck there. Good morning, Mr. Tunji Oyebanji.
Good morning.
Aha, good morning. Now, this is Yori Folarin. I'm here in the studio with my colleague Cyril Abaku, and we wanted to find out from you why you think there's a problem in affecting the decrease in the pump price of fuel. There was no problem when it came from 145 to 125. It was affected at the pumps readily enough. But now that it's come to 120, from 125 to 123.5, petrol stations are not adjusting their pumps. At least the Total filling station that is close to TVC here keeps it at 125 and takes 125 per liter.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Folarin. I think we are not following really the announcements that are being made by the authorities in this regard. If you followed closely, when the PPPRA, which is the statutory body responsible for setting prices as at this time, came out, they made a further announcement to explain that the price band is between 123.50 and 125 naira. Essentially, what that means is that you can sell anywhere in between that band. Therefore, people selling at 125 are not contravening any laws. If you like, you can sell at 124 or 123.50. The reason probably why you are not seeing much difference at this point in time is because the band is very, very small. If the band were probably maybe a 5 naira differential, then you would see people begin to take positions at different points within the band.
I see. Well, thank you for clearing that up. A lot of people weren't aware that, you know, what you've just explained is indeed the actuality. You can actually dispense or sell between 123.5 and 125. As I said at the beginning, my colleague Cyril Abaku is here. He has a question.
So yeah, the big question is, as an association, do you have some kind of parameter for, you know, so like among your people, some will sell at a given, is it all free for everybody to sell at a given price, or you have stations that may be willing to sell at a particular price?
Well, let me start from first principles here. A week, maybe a week and a half ago, the group managing director came out to make a pronouncement, which for all intents and purposes gives the direction the government seems to be proceeding as far as the whole issue of petroleum prices are concerned. His comments were to the effect that there would no longer be anything like subsidy payments or under recovery going forward. That in itself has opened the door for a regime whereby prices will no longer really be fixed by fiat. All you will see as we move into the future is some kind of band where people can operate within that level. There will not be anything like a specific price anymore. We've actually had it in the past, but you know, as time went on, we reverted back to the way things were. For us, we believe this is really the direction that we should go, because definitely we feel that both for Nigeria as a country and for the industry, this provides a better platform and is more sustainable. What we operate today, whereby the artificial price, modulations, is not really sustainable, given the amount of money we have to spend as a country whenever the international prices start going up or are different from what is local. But the good thing about it is that when the opportunity arises for reductions in prices, they will happen, and vice versa, when the situation calls for an increase in prices, that will also happen.
So right now, as chairman of the Major Oil Marketers Association in Nigeria, has the removal of subsidies, is it complete 100%? And do you have any issues? Is there anything that the public needs to take into understanding and consideration?
Well, the first thing is to say that the concept of deregulation first, let me clarify that a bit. It doesn't mean there will not be any regulation again in the downstream industry. It merely means that prices of PMS in particular will now no longer be fixed by fiat. All you will have is some kind of price guide, which would ensure that the public is not exploited or anything like that. As an association, we are fully in support of this direction. Now, when you talk about it being completed fully, of course, there are certain things that will still need to be worked out. There may be need, for instance, for legislation to come in so that the legislation is in line with the desire of where government would like to go. Some of that will take a bit of time. Don't forget also, up to this point, government through the NMPC has been the sole importer of PMS into the country in the last maybe 2 years.
Okay.
That will change. Other players will start getting involved, but of course, that will take some time for them to gear up their processes to start importing products into the country. So I would say what we have now is an indication of the direction we should be going. There are a few things that would need to be sorted out and clarified, but for all intents and purposes, we think this is the way to go, and we are fully in support of it.
Cool. Another question from my colleague.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Moman, cooperating with the move to take away oil subsidies. But my other question is this: the NNPC GM, they also said that their own retail outlets will be in the market to reflect pricing that is in line with demand and supply. That is to say, the market forces. But will Moman try to create a common pricing corridor to protect its interest, or will it let its members to fix prices as each station deems fit?
That is absolutely a no-no. As you know, many of the MOMAN members, some of them are still companies with international affiliations. That would be counterproductive. It would be anti-competition. What we would expect to do would be to let each company fix prices as it believes fit. It would not be in the interest of the Nigerian consumer for any group, to act like a cartel to fix prices. So that is not going to happen, and it will not be part of our discussions at all.
All right, then. Well, Mr. Tunji Oyebanji, I want to thank you very much for joining us via Skype and phone, combining the two sometimes. That's what you've done. Thank you very much for shedding light on the situation.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, then. So, really, that really brings us to the end of our program. But, as always, we wished we could get the callers in. We just have a couple of minutes, maybe 1 or 2 minutes more, perhaps less, to round off. So we touched base in quite a number of places, looking at the situation in terms of compliance in Abuja, in Lagos, and in Ogun, and also trying to make sense of the perspectives that are being put out. Maybe there are exaggerated perspectives, but exaggerated or not, the authorities took it seriously enough to address the situation in Ogun, and the Lagos State government, as I said, we probably can make a program out of that. Maybe tomorrow we'll see how lucky we get, have them come in and speak about the measures that they are taking. I do believe they're trying to get a call in. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Mr. George, okay, good morning. Maybe you'll be the solitary caller.
Okay, George.
Yes, good morning, Mr. George.
Uncle Yori, with due respect to the gentleman you just interviewed,
yes,
I'm taken aback with the explanation he gave about the reduction that was made on the oil petrol price.
The pump price.
If the bracket is, if 23.50 is the minimum within the bracket, why would government tell us that there is a reduction? What I know from the past, Uncle Yori, is the bracket, the minimum of the bracket is what is normally announced as the official price for the day. The minimum of the bracket. But he is now saying the maximum of the bracket is what is applicable. How do we marry those two together?
Well, he did say that people could operate in that range as they saw fit, that there might be somebody operating at 124 naira.
Where the price would be. The government cannot give 23.50 if 23.50 is the minimum that any petrol station could sell. They always give a range. That range, that 23.50 will be the maximum. Otherwise, there will be no reduction.
Okay. In terms of, because government did reduce from 125 to 123.50.
Yes.
And,
so that 123.50 is the maximum of the bracket.
Okay. I hear you.
You need to.
Point noted, Mr. George. Thank you very much. Now we've run out of time. We can't even add any commentary anymore. But We'll see if we can get more calls in subsequently and as we return to normal. Everybody is doing their own little bit for COVID-19. So on behalf of my colleague here, Cyril Abaku, Senior Researcher, TVC News, this is Yori Folarin saying, goodbye for now. See you tomorrow, God willing, for a fresh edition of the program.